Let's read through the question then. You should spend about 20 minutes on this task. The chart below shows the numbers of male and female research students. Okay, research students studying 6 science-related subjects at a UK university in 2009. So just one university. Summarise the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Write at least 150 words. Okay, so let's look at the graph now. No title on the graph. Sometimes there's a title, but not on this one. Along the horizontal axis, the x-axis, you've got the science-related subjects. So physics, astronomy, geology, that's the study of rocks, biology, medicine, veterinary medicine. And in the vertical axis, the research students, the y-axis, so 50 up to 250. These aren't in thousands, these are actual numbers because it's at one university. These are research students, I assume postgraduate students as well. And you've got 2 in the legend over here. You've got men, which is the striped pattern, and women is the white. So let's have a look at this then. So we see with men dominate the study of physics, there are far more men than women here, maybe 40 to 240, is about 6 times as many men as women, I think. Astronomy, okay, more than double the number of men. Geology, about exactly double, I think, women as men. Biology, again, there are more men than women, but the gap is much closer here. And medicine, again, quite similar. Men are first, but women not far behind. And oh, in veterinary medicine, this is medicine, basically animal doctors. There are more women than men here. Again, it's very equal here. Now, in a good task 1 question, you will be able to categorize or break up the graph or chart or process diagram in some way. You'll be able to look at it. You need to try and break it down so there's 2 or maybe 3 different areas to contrast. And I would say here, this is where you would break up the graph, because you've got on the left of the red line, men massively dominate the study of science, whereas on the right it's much more equal. It's not women dominating, but what we call the gender balance is much more equal. Okay, so now we've thought about the graph, we've looked at the graph. Now let's try to write about the graph over here. It's very important before I start writing to think of the structure, so I'm going to obviously write an introduction, which is basically paraphrasing the description of the chart in the question, and then I'm going to talk about the overall picture as well. What does the whole graph tell you? And then we're going to go into more details. Now I've drawn the line in the graph, so what I'm going to do is the next paragraph will be details about the male dominated subjects, physics, astronomy and geology, and then I will talk about the paragraph where there is more of a gender balance. I think also I might just finish it off with one final paragraph about the veterinary medicine. You could start this off with, interestingly, women, there are more women than men studying veterinary medicine, for example. So there's the structure, kind of 5 paragraphs. You could do this as 4 as well. I recommend a 4 paragraph structure. Before I write again, let's think of some vocabulary, some language that we can push into the essay. It's better to think about the vocabulary and phrases, words and phrases before we write rather than as we write, because when we write there's too much to think about. So there's the word subject in the task, but I don't want to use the word subjects too often. So what other words can we use? We could use the word fields. We talk about academic fields or disciplines as well. Students is a difficult one to paraphrase, so I think I'll skip that. You could maybe talk about postgraduates, but it's not clear from the graph. They're probably postgraduates, but not quite sure. University, synonyms for university, you could say academic institution, or you could say even a higher education institution, possibly even a college, but a college is more kind of American English. Physics, astronomy, geology. Okay, how can we talk about those in a group? You can talk about physical sciences for this. You could even study of inanimate objects and materials. That would be quite good. Inanimate objects, that would impress the IELTS examiner quite a lot. For biology, medicine, veterinary medicine, you could talk about, I think, the life sciences, and maybe the life sciences and medicine. Okay. What about male, female? You've got male, female, and you've got men, women around here. You could talk about gender. You could talk about sex, the sex balance, but gender is probably a better word to use in a formal essay like this. Language for talking about numbers, comparing numbers. You could use words like outnumber. So men outnumber women overwhelmingly in the physical sciences, overwhelmingly. So there's a nice little adverb there. In the life sciences, things are more equally balanced. There's a less of a gender gap there. Large proportion of men studying the physical sciences are men. Okay, we've got those ones there, large proportion. We might want to talk about something like male dominated. The majority of science students are men. We could also, one useful phrase in comparison is the as phrase. You could say as there were nearly as many women as men studying biology. Or you could say something like in physics 6 times as many men as women. We've used the word proportion as well, a large proportion of men. Okay, so here's some vocabulary we can try to put in when we actually do the writing. And before you write, you can maybe jot down some language, some words, some phrases that you'd like to put in. So let's start writing now with the introduction. You've got to paraphrase the description here. So we've got the chart below shows. Okay, so let's say the bar chart shows, let's use the word illustrates instead. The bar chart illustrates the number of male and female research students. Let's talk instead of the gender distribution. The gender distribution of, let's say, okay, the gender distribution of students What are they studying? So instead of studying, let's say doing or pursuing, we often talk about pursuing studies, pursuing research. So scientific research. So pursuing scientific research instead of research students studying science-related subjects. Instead of 6, we could say something like across a range of. We've used the word scientific already, so I don't need to say scientific again. Across a range of disciplines, across a range of fields, we could say instead. At a UK university in 2009, so we could say at an academic institution in the UK in 2009. You don't need to paraphrase everything on this one. What's the overall picture? Some people, by the way, put the overall paragraph at the end. I prefer to start with the big picture and go into the detail. I think that's a better way. Helps you think as well. So what's the overall picture? You could start off with a phrase like at an overall perspective, but it sounds a bit forced. Keep the language natural. Don't force in advanced language where you don't need it. So overall, what does the chart show? The chart shows that, again, at this university, at this particular university, I could say higher education institution perhaps. Again, you don't need to paraphrase everything, but try and paraphrase quite a bit. The chart shows that this particular university, well, the overall picture, all 6 subjects men dominate. So science related fields, you could say, are dominated by male students, but not completely. If you add all the numbers up, yes, it's male dominated, but however, women have a strong presence in biology and medicine and form the majority in veterinary medicine. Remember, we're talking about the overall picture. So however, female, let's not say female students because we just said male students. However, women have a significant let's use this word, have a significant presence in fields or in disciplines related to the life sciences. I think we can, and medicine. Okay, so that's the overall picture. Let's talk about the male dominated subjects. So you could say, okay, men lead in 5 of them, so we could say in 5 of the 6 disciplines, male students outnumber women, outnumber females, women. Male students, men are by far the dominant gender numerically. If I just said dominant gender, it sounds like they're in control, but no, it's dominant numerically. Men are by far the dominant gender numerically in the physical sciences. Let's say what they are as well: physics, astronomy. Again, you don't need to paraphrase these ones. And geology. Okay. Let's use the word overwhelmingly. We use men, so male students were overwhelmingly in the majority in the field of physics. And then let's put some data in the detail paragraphs. You need to put in some numbers, some actual specific data. So male students were overwhelmingly in the majority in the field of physics, where they outnumbered women by a margin, I think you can say, a margin of, I think it's about 6 to 1. I'm not quite sure whether you end up by a margin of about 6 to 1. And I think that's probably all we need to say for the male-dominated paragraph. Let's go to the women now, or the gender balance one rather. What other language do we need to put in there? Have we used the word gender? Overwhelmingly we've used these words. More equally balanced. More equally balanced. More equally represented perhaps. Men and women were more equally represented in subjects related to life sciences. I've used life sciences before, so let's say the study of living things instead, and again name them by, this is important for coherence, medicine and veterinary. Make sure you spell it correctly, as it's already in the graph, of course. In biology, for instance, for example. In biology, for instance, there were, let's use the as phrase, there were nearly as many women as men. And then put in some data. We can put that in the brackets. Approximately how many women? Approximately 200. So approximately 200. Now hang on. There were nearly as many women. Let's put it here. Approximately 200 as men, and men were approximately 230, 240 perhaps. It doesn't need to be accurately because we put the word approximately in there anyway. And you can see the same pattern in medicine, so you could say this was also true in medicine. You could put the data in if you want to. I think we're doing well on the word count, so we probably don't need to. Let's go on to the final paragraph. Interestingly, veterinary medicine was the only field in which, let's use a relative clause, again that will impress the IELTS examiner, in which women, we've used the word outnumber already here, so let's use the word formed the majority of the student body. And that, I think, is probably enough. Let's see what our word count is. I think we've used pretty much most of this language at the top. Let's take out the headings. I'd say about 200 words actually, maybe a little bit less. Oh, 150, bang on 150. Okay, maybe we could say something else about veterinary medicine. So female made up And then let's have a there were instead. There were roughly, how many? 120 female as opposed to around how many men? About 90 around 90 male students in this field. It's always very tempting to try and make a comment as to why that was the case. You know, why are women in the majority in veterinary medicine? Why is there such a gender balance between men and women in the life sciences and medicine? But in task 1, you don't need to do that. You don't need to put your opinions down. You just need to put down the facts. And there are the facts. So 183 words. So we've turned that little graph and the sentence that goes with it into a nice little report here. So let's just read through it. The bar chart illustrates the gender distribution. This is to check. You're checking your language, you're checking your spelling here. The bar chart illustrates the gender distribution of students pursuing scientific research across a range of disciplines at an academic institution in the UK in 2009. Overall, the chart shows that at this particular university, science-related fields are dominated by male students. However, women have a significant presence in fields related to the study of life sciences and medicine. In 5 of the 6 disciplines, male students outnumber women. Men are by far the dominant gender numerically in the physical sciences, physics, astronomy and geology. Male students were overwhelmingly in the majority in the field of physics. I think let's just say in physics. It sounds a bit forced. The IELTS examiner might think, oh, he's just trying to shove in some extra words. Where they outnumbered women by a margin of about 6 to 1. Men and women were more equally represented in subjects related to the study of living things, biology, medicine and veterinary medicine. In biology, for instance, there were nearly as many women, approximately 200, as men, approximately 240. This was also true in medicine. Interestingly, veterinary medicine was the only field in which women formed the majority of the student body. There were roughly 120 female students as opposed to around 90 male students in this field. There we go. 182 words. Done.